Hello, and welcome to another episode of New World Comics Podcast. I'm Buck Berlin, owner-operator of this fine establishment. Joined with me this week is Jason Watt.
Hi there, how's it going?
Woo! We decided that this week we wanted to deep dive into 90's back issues. Because, I don't know, there's just something that you always hear about people in 90's back issues just always talking the most trash about it.
Well, and it's a really hated kind of period in time, but there's some real gold to be had.
Oh, yeah.
And some, I mean, shall we call it fool's gold, where even if it's not good, it's fun?
Yes. And, I mean, that's the era that, I really, really started reading comics.
Yeah.
I got a few Batman comics back in 89 when the movie came out, but, X-Men _4 was my first comic that, from then on, I got comics.
Yeah.
Jim Lee's, Chris Claremont, it was...
X-Men 4, was that...
first Omega Red.
Omega Red, yeah. That's a great start.
Oh, man, yeah, so it starts off with, the X-Men playing basketball.
Yeah.
And, Wolverine may or may not move the hoop a little with his claws there at the end, and, yeah.
Yeah, at that time when that was an acceptable plot point.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gambit tries to steal a kiss from Rogue, and she socks him, and... Oh, man.
In every issue.
Yeah. So, there were just so many more comics produced in the 90's than there had been up until that point. And more just because they could, because comics were selling like no one had expected before. So everyone kind of had free reign to do whatever they wanted, because now everything needed to have its title, its representation of whatever ideas they had for them. And the, grittier and tougher thing that you could come out with was the new fad. So I wanted to, look back into that era and kind of see what we could find. Because, there's some grim and gritty stuff that was fun. And you look back on them like, man, what were we thinking? And then some of it, oh, man, there's some of the greatest stuff in all of comics came out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which I want to start off with probably the most underrated 90's comic series of all time.
Without a doubt.
And if you have not read it, shame on you, shame on us, shame on everyone who has not told you about this before.
We have failed you.
James Robinson's Starman.
So good.
Yeah. So it spun out from Zero Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the youngest son of the Golden Age Starman, who doesn't want to have anything to do with his dad's legacy. He just, he deals in junk antiques and just does any kind of fun thing that he wants to do. He's kind of a failure, but, he will always go learn, karate just because he feels like he needs to, because he thinks it's cool. He'll buy collections of, retro anything, just because he thinks that it's the cool thing to do. And then it starts off with his brother dying. Yeah. And someone's coming after the family. And then old Jack Knight has to step up and try to save the day. And it's an 80-issue run, but it has a few spin-offs and one-shots kind of here and there that help tie the whole thing together. It's one of the only comic series that has a beginning, middle, and end that comes from one of the two major companies. It's got beautiful, beautiful little moments of all of a sudden this guy, the reluctant hero, has to go into space and has to get a mother box from Orion. And everyone's telling him just how terrible it is to deal with Orion. And then he finally goes and, talks to Orion, off scene, of course. Then he comes back and is like, man, yeah, that guy's great. We're going to go hang out whenever I get back. It's all good. Little things like that.
I love that you said reluctant hero, too, because that's such a trope in comics of the reluctant hero, but I think it really is. It's certainly my favorite example.
Well, and it's not only that he's reluctant, it's that he comes to embrace it, and it's just so moving towards the end when all these things that you didn't realize were building or needed payoff get that. It has absolutely one of the greatest Hour Man moments of all time.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, when they're defending the bridge.
Yeah.
And he says, all right, I got an hour. It's my time to fight. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was so good. It's a great hearkening back to heroes of old, but you feel it felt timely at the time, and I think it still does, in that the storytelling is modern.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just marvelous.
Yeah, and it casts shade where shade needs to be on some of the Golden Age heroes, and then it shows how great some of them actually were without ever getting that recognition. It's absolutely fantastic. Everyone needs to read Starman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what have you got?
So, I guess I'm going to kick off with, to me, the defining moment of 90s comics. And as soon as I think about 90s comics, it's Death of Superman. It was, I vividly remember buying this. I mean, I got a show, the polybagged book. And then, of course, if you were impatient like me and didn't believe that you should just keep it in the bag, the comics were for reading, there's the cover of it. I remember being with my dad and buying this book. And I'd been around comics, and I loved them, but I didn't have, I liked comics.
Yeah.
If it was pretty paper with, some poor hero on it, I was on board. And Death of Superman was just such a defining moment. And say what we want about the way the story is told, the reasons why it came about, especially when you look at the time around it, and it's, we got to do something with Superman. Is he going to get married or is he going to die? He can't get married, so I guess we got to kill him. Which, leave that to be its own commentary. But it's just, it led to a lot, and in a lot of ways it kind of ruined comics, because... Spoiler alert, he doesn't stay dead.
They took the wrong winning aspect of it. What went right about it was not the fact that you killed someone.
No, not at all. But it was, you look back at the time in which they handled it, and yeah, there was, I was a little too young to fully comprehend it, but you could kind of go back and feel the vibes of, there was a period of mourning, of people being in, the various stages of denial and acceptance, and you felt it because, Superman, he's one of the most iconic people to ever not actually walk the earth.
See, I was so young and I didn't know the DC universe as well as the Marvel universe, because Marvel had better trading cards, and that's how you found out about characters back then.
That's true.
Because to a kid who didn't have a comic shop to go to at the time, I didn't know what a Silver Age, what a modern age, what a Golden Age was. Like, what was the difference? Like, the trading cards didn't tell me. But Marvel, it was all one thing.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes their costumes were changing too much back then. So, like, the cards didn't necessarily match with what they were being shown in the comic. So I couldn't quite figure out who all and what all everyone was. So to me, it was this, okay, so it said that he died, but I guess that's Lois, and she's got red hair, but not black hair like in the movies or everything else that I had seen. So like it was so weird to me and hard for me to comprehend then.
Well, let's also not forget the fact that during the late 80s and early 90s, our redheads were just overrepresented in everything. And virtually every female character you remember from that time, you remember as a redhead, whether they were or weren't. April and the Old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, it was...
It's
more important than it is good.
Yeah.
But it's really important. So it leaves a lot of good room there for me.
The storytelling itself is so slapdash together.
Oh, totally.
A couple years ago, I may or may not have put together this play with everyone from Superhero School, with a link down below for those who really want to see it.
Don't do it.
I took the actual dialogue from the comics, or I kind of took the gist of what they were saying. And we got about a 30-minute play, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's one of the most impressive feats we've ever tried to tackle here at the store. It's awful. But it's amazing to watch too.
Oh, absolutely. And when
So-
I think it's right that you made a spectacle of it, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It is a spectacle of an event within comics.
I mean, that being said, there were some really great spin-offs from it. There were some really terrible spin-offs from it too. So the Eradicator and Cyborg Superman were terrible.
You know what? 9-year-old Jason loved the Eradicator because he was so sleek and so cool.
And he was so ready to go hunting.
All he wanted to do, he was Superman without any humanity at all.
Just that perfect eye protection.
The visor,
The hunting goggles.
the visor of power. Oh, it was fantastic. The half black suit, because vertical lines always work well, and
I mean, I will say his suit did look kind of cool.
it was actually.
Except for the hunting glasses. Like, I can't get over.
You're not wrong.
They were like, no, yellow glasses, because yellow glasses are cool. But I mean, he was cooler than Cyborg Superman ended up being. Like, Cyborg Superman looked the coolest of all of them.
Oh, absolutely.
And then ended up just being this really sad, pathetic dude. And then they didn't really make any other good use of him until, like, the Sinestro Corps stuff. When he...
Not true.
Oh?
He was responsible
Oh, see, the Coast City thing?
for
See,
Coast City.
that still falls under the Death of Superman stuff.
Okay.
I mean, after.
Oh, yeah.
You're like-
No, they definitely didn't do anything good with Hank Henshaw until Sinestro.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, because, like, during the thing, even Eradicator had some really cool moments, but, like, afterwards,
You know what? I will also always have my love for Eradicator because he was right. They started him at the right time, and they ended him in the right way.
Yeah.
So I agree to disagree
Fair enough.
on the bespectacled Superman.
I mean, Steel got created for kind of all the wrong reasons. Oh, you have Steel. You know, I'll let you go first.
All right.
Because over here in my pile, I have Superboy, but I want to hear
Perfect.
your thoughts on Steel.
So I've got I organized my books kind of somewhat thematically here, and I have Steel in my pile of what 90s comics taught me. And what 90s comics taught me is that things you love don't always last. And I loved Steel from his very introduction. I had, all of the Reign of the Supermen books. I absolutely loved him. I thought he was just a fantastic character, great for the time and place. Years later, looking back on him, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I thought he's a great representative character.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that he was so clearly not Superman reincarnate, except for the fact that he was the spirit of what makes Superman Superman.
Yes.
The world is not as good as it can be. Someone's got to do something. I have the ability to do something. He makes his uniform, and he has the ability to fire massive rivets from his... I don't worry about that.
So, fun story. I know how much you love the Walt Simonson
It's true.
Thor. Did you see who wrote that? It's his wife.
I never put that together.
Yeah. So they're writing.
This makes a lot of sense.
Their writing styles very similar, and,
Yep.
and
That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's incredibly charming. How much you love Walt Simonson and never knew.
I never knew.
So that it's always neat kind of seeing how
Yeah.
it works. Yeah.
Well, because there's a 20-year gap between me reading Steel and me discovering the beauty of Walt Simonson's Thor run.
Yeah.
So, I haven't thought about the character of Steel, I'm going to say legitimately for more than a passing thought, in about those 20 years. With the exception of maybe recounting the story of the Reign of the Supermen to friends that didn't read comics. But yeah, I unabashedly loved Steel.
See, I thought that the Steel comics were okay at the time, and that he has become a much better character well after, when they can kind of have some time to really flesh out what they wanted him to be, as opposed to, so here's a construction worker whose name's John Henry because he's a big black guy with a hammer, right? and we'll make a play on that. And wait,
Comics are comics, man.
And then he makes a suit of armor. Oh wait, it needs to fly. How does it fly? Because he's a construction worker. Construction workers don't know how to make jetpacks. No, he's a smart guy that got fired from LexCorp.
Yeah.
Like it's this. They wanted one thing so badly that they didn't worry about the story leading up to it. Until after the fact, and now they've kind of fleshed out. Okay, well, here's the line of events that all this works, and he's now essentially Tony Stark for the DC universe.
Yeah, which is great.
That's
I love him
perfect.
in that role.
Yeah,
but I loved him in his superhero role. In as Steel, and that. Yeah, because young Jason didn't catch the dichotomy of. Wait, what is this character we're trying to create?
Yeah.
And it's just, I think I have my my modern book of, because a lot of people don't love Superman. It happens. I have my modern book that I refer people to.
They just haven't read the right Superman.
Exactly. And I've got a one-shot that I give to people, and it's Here's Why Superman Matters. And you know what? Issue 1 of Steel might be... or that Reign of the Supermen might be my secondary choice of here's why Superman matters.
Interesting.
Yes, it's not Superman, but here's why he needs to exist.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the one thing that they were able to keep, in his origin going forward is yes, this is the whole thought pattern of why he's there.
Oh, so good.
So the flip side of that is Superboy, which came out as a time when I was also a very young lad that was like, man, it'd be cool if I had superpower. What would I do? Pretty much that.
Superboy, to me, is one of the most Marvel-feeling DC characters ever.
Oh, very much so, yeah. Because it starts off as this kid who's just trying to impress girls and show off his cool powers.
And his sweet leather jacket.
Terrible at it.
He's bad at everything he does.
He just fails constantly, and he doesn't, and he just tries to not let it get him down. And then,
I absolutely loved Superboy in that first run.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded to just hate him through everything after that.
Really?
I don't like when he breaks bad and you're dealing with that version of him, because it's still the him. It's still the same him.
I don't know. When they changed up this Superboy for the one that we got in Teen Titans, which allegedly is the same character.
No.
He is very much not that
No,
character.
not at all.
No. Superboy in Young Justice is very different than Superboy in Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Which is really sad because there was the time that this Superboy started dating Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, and Batman just wasn't having it because he knew that he was this jackass kid that was just trying to get in her pants. But no, he was trying to get better and trying to grow. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of really endearing moments. My other favorite thing with that is his run introduced us to the whole crew at
Cadmus,
and we had Guardian, Double X, and oh man, did I love those guys. Guardian was just super fun for me.
Oh yeah,
and God, what a tragic character.
Oh, if you were involved in Superman at that time, there was something awful and horrific that was happening. Like, hey, Pete Ross got with Lana Lang, and then he became president. But it ended in such tragedy. And yeah, and then like Pete Ross's kid died, and then
and Guardian just faded for. Well, bring up a new Guardian.
Oh, don't get me started on Gangbuster.
Oh yeah,
yeesh.
But yeah, I loved. That was man, that's my childhood right there.
So very soon after all that, I discovered this MTV show called The Max. It was dark and gritty, and ink looked like it was just dripping off the page. It was amazing, and it looked like all the really fun art from Marvel Comics Presents, because it was Sam Keith from Marvel Comics Presents. And oh my God, the Max series is so freaking great.
I was, I think, exactly too young for the Max when it was big.
Really?
Because I wanted to like it, but I couldn't get it. But I mean, if you want to talk about just iconic artwork and a willingness to just dive into creating a world.
So head trippy too. And it's hard to say how much was Messner Loebs and how much was Sam Keith, but like it just goes off the rails. And when it comes back, you're like, am I sure that I'm in the same place? It's so freaking great. And if you love a very harsh pen and ink style, like Sam Keith is one of the end-all be-all artists for.
Absolutely.
He's not the most consistent, but as far as just producing a beautiful image and a narrative in the page, he's great.
Yeah.
And I mean, it honestly, as much as it pains me to say, if you're going into this for the story, watch the cartoon series.
Yeah.
Because it kind of has a better ending than the comic series does. Because the comic series goes on for about 20-something more issues than the cartoon.
Than it maybe oughta.
Yeah. But man, it's just visceral and sad and endearing and happy and
It's
sad.
Real weird.
And, yeah.
It's about as out there as I think you can get in the medium before you start losing everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, in the era of here's your Image comics, that's everyone is super powered, everyone has everything going for them, unless they don't, and then they have more power than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
He is so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what drew me to him. That, and he always looks like he was flipping everyone off.
It's true.
Because his claw hands.
Yeah, his claw hand, middle finger claw.
Middle finger, but it's not.
But it is, but it isn't.
He thrust his hands into the molten lava and pulled out claw hand. Yeah.
90s, man.
Yeah, it's great. It's a trip.
Yeah, and it's that perfect kind of badassery.
Yeah.
To me, I grabbed just an exemplary issue of Ghost Rider simply because for me,
talking about badassery,
90s Ghost Rider is just the 90s incarnate. There's just no reason spikes and endless chains, and I mean, even though he existed for so long,
he was a 70s character, and then because they wanted to have the original one be Axl Rose with a shotgun, they got a new one, which was Danny Ketch, who had a cooler motorcycle that didn't have any moving parts because I guess the artist didn't want to draw an actual motorcycle. Don't get me wrong, it looked awesome.
And I'm not going to sit here and cite. I mean, like I said, there's no particular just if you're feeling nostalgic. You want to feel like you just cracked open a fresh pack of Dunkaroos or maybe a Jolt Cola. Any issue of Ghost Rider from the 90s will do.
Yeah, because everyone's talking about how much butt they kicked.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, so much butt kicking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, everyone could say butt all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they did.
So, they said it to no end.
Yeah.
Yep. And the further you go in the series, the more flaming skull-headed creatures there are.
Yeah.
And the spikier they got, like Vengeance, who had a blackish purplish skull and a purple jacket and pink pants. And a big flaming head and tusks, I guess. And
tusks, yep.
Big spiky mohawk. Someone was like, yeah, that's the coolest.
It really was. You could see them slowly turning the dial to 11 over the course of the decade.
Yeah, so once they pushed it past 11, they ended up just kind of breaking the knob.
Yeah.
And like, someone will fix this, we're sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets real weird after a while because Ghost Rider just kept selling well enough and the editors were just getting by that, they didn't want to mess with it too much because it kept selling. But they didn't want to lose anyone.
Yeah.
So they just let it go way too long in that direction. So, kind of speaking towards that, like, New Warriors is kind of the anti-Ghost Rider. Like, it's, here's the young, hip team that's it's not the Avengers in the era where everything was X-Men.
Yeah.
It was kind of the anti-New Mutants because like New Mutants was just high drama and high, just all this, whereas New Warriors was light drama, but everyone was trying to get along and trying to make their place in the world and figure out, are they doing this for fame? Are they doing this for the betterment of people? Are they doing this just to get onto a team? What does it mean to get onto the Avengers team? How and why and all that. And then again, it sold well enough, and then kind of got into this really weird era of, okay, so Scarlet Spider's going to join the team, and Darkhawk showed up and was part of the team, and it got really weird towards the end. But, it went on not quite as long as Ghost Rider, but like it
a little too long.
Yeah, but honestly, the first 50 issues of New Warriors are some of the best comics you can find. Fabian Nicieza and Mark Bagley do most of it, and my God, it is just the most perfect 90s, like, okay, let's not go too far one way or the other. Let's go as middle of the road superhero as you can without it being any kind of grim and gritty for the sake of being grim and gritty, action for the sake of just, irate action. It's just solid.
Yeah, well, especially when you look at the background for those two creators. Like, there's just... This had to be like their after dinner mint of a book.
I think Fabian Nicieza is probably the most underrated writer in all of comics.
I don't know that I can argue with that. Yeah, I look at his resume, and it's invariably a whole lot of stuff that I love.
Yeah, well, and he tends to get saddled with books that have been started by someone else, and then he takes over
and somehow turns it around.
Well, yeah, and because whoever was on it is no longer there, half the readership flees because they're off to whatever the next thing is. But those that stick around, oh my God, the series just gets so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, like he's responsible for most of your Deadpool goodness.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. He's New Warriors. He's a lot of Spider-Man books. The X-Force books right after Rob Liefeld left. He's responsible for most of those.
What actually is my favorite run of X-Force, I think.
Yeah.
With the exception of maybe Uncanny, but yeah.
Yeah, which I have some of that later in this deck.
Great.
Actually, why don't we delve into that? So for this one, I chose X-Force 19 just as like one of my favorite issues. So it's right after Cable leaves because of the big crossover that had just happened. And the X-Force team is without leadership, and they're super upset with Professor X and how he's doing things because they set out to be the proactive team and do all the the stuff, and they just keep getting crapped on by the X-Men and every other X team. And Cannonball has to say, all right, Professor, like, do we, go about this one way or another, because a closed fist can either be used for punching or it can be a warming thing for something much smaller. How do we want to go about this going forward?
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it's early Greg Capullo art, which... it's right about the time that he changed up his style to move over to Spawn.
There we go. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So
that's a perfect little time frame there.
Yeah,
it's a fun capsule.
And then let me
please,
since we're on X-Force, before we jump over to some more DC goodness.
Yep.
X-Force number 44 is another big paradigm shift in the title. So. The team goes from the proactive team to the X-Men preparatory team. They move into the mansion. Cable loses a lot of the guns. They bring in Caliban from the Morlocks, and he was one of the Apocalypse Four Horsemen. And Cable starts doing all right, let's train to be better heroes and people, not just mercenaries. Let's, let's go out and try to make an actual difference because maybe we've been going about this the wrong way.
Which the phrase "cable voice of reason" is a bit of a bitter pill for me to swallow, but I could see it there.
And it's when Cannonball leaves the team to go join the X-Men, and you feel the lack of Cannonball on the team throughout that entire run. Just because, like Tabitha's there and she's like, Boom Boom, his girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, and it's just constantly like, man, I didn't realize how much I relied on him. I got to change things up. I got to get better at this. And she realizes that she can do so much more without relying on people, and it's great. And I will say that it's written by Jeff Loeb.
I was about to ask the writer on that one.
Yeah, so for those of you who love Hush or Long Halloween or any of his other DC stuff, this is absolutely his best work. I mean, because most of his other stuff is actually him just kind of rewriting things and just kind of rearranging and producing a new thing. Mm-hmm. This is some of his most solid work.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to read that run.
Yeah, you most definitely do. The art is atypical for the time. I've really grown to love it, but it's not necessarily your standard middle of the road Marvel art. So it takes some getting used to, and there's the issue where the three ladies of the team take down the Blob. Probably one of my favorite, has some of the most garish artwork.
Nice.
Yeah, but I love it.
That sounds super fun.
Yeah. Oh, it really is.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, as he alluded to, I was absolutely and unrepentantly a DC kid growing up. The Marvel just didn't hold the appeal for me for whatever reason, and I've come back to love a lot of the Marvel stuff from that time and become more of a Marvel fan over the years. But I was just knee deep in DC. And I think this is probably a good time. What direction should we take this?
Let's go Justice League.
Okay, perfect. So Justice League, I grabbed I grabbed two here, America and Europe.
Yes.
And I think it's a really interesting time for both. One, Justice League America at the time of the death of Superman is maybe the weirdest lineup in the history of the Justice League.
One of the most ineffectual teams you could possibly see.
Just, if you want to name a team where you can't name half the characters and the half that you can name, you don't know what their powers are.
You mean Bloodwind, the necromancer, who's actually Martian Manhunter with a mind gem attached to his chest that is actually a separate dimension that's driving him crazy? What?
Yup.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maxima, Superman's crazy ex-girlfriend who's betrothed to him, but not because she's crazy.
How about Guy Gardner?
Oh, Guy Gardner, the failed Green Lantern that has a stolen Sinestro core ring.
And who operates out of alternately a strip club and brothel.
Yep.
Who is in love with Ice, who I want to go back and find whoever designed her uniform and just slap them with a fashion magazine.
I will say that uniform way better than her first one. Her Ice Maiden look is just terrible. Man. And I mean, honestly, Fire's look in this is way better than what her first costume was.
That's fair.
Big, giant, fiery shoulder pads. Those two are the most effectual of the team.
Without a doubt.
And then there's Blue Beetle, who's absolutely one of my all-time favorite. And then Booster Gold, who makes him ineffectual. Like,
yep.
It's the straight A valedictorian who has the stupid sports guy friend who fails at sports, but still drags him down with him.
Yep, manages to get the valedictorian to get straight C's.
Yep.
And that's really that's JLA for most of the 90s, in my opinion, it's a whole group of people that, thank God, wait,
yep.
He's what? Uh-oh.
Yeah, Superman joins the team just in time enough to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the flip side, Justice League Europe
is so dumb and great, and silly, but it's everything
that Justice League America should have been.
And it's a revolving door of characters.
Yeah, because you have, like, at any given moment, like, Flash and Green Lantern kind of stay most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, Aquaman's there briefly.
Yep.
Power Girl's there most of the time. But
with at least 2 outfits over the course of the 90s.
Oh, yeah. And then
possibly more.
Yeah, Dr. Light shows up.
Dr. Light.
Elongated Man's part of the team.
Yep.
Metamorpho's part of the team.
Metamorpho.
Crimson Fox, everyone's favorite Crimson Fox.
She is my favorite member of the team because they said we need Pepe Le Pew as a female, and they stopped there.
Yeah, she's got claws in the costume and a giant headpiece.
And the best thing she can do is secrete pheromones, thus causing the bad guys to fall in love with her to bring them within range of her claws.
Yeah, like, we're not joking here on that. Like, they were like, yep, superhero if I've ever seen one.
And let's not forget the Russian superhero.
Oh my God, Rocket Red! I love Rocket Red.
Rocket Red. There's been 2. There was Ivanovich.
Pardon me, sir. There's been way more than 2.
Okay, my apologies.
So they blow up a lot.
Yeah, that's really what they do.
I mean, like, it's Iron Man that didn't insulate the suit. Like,
yeah, Russian engineering.
They die.
Yeah.
Badly.
Yeah, they don't do a lot while they're alive, so they're great. Although it's still better than Blue Jay, who, if you think about all the powers of Ant-Man, and nope, all he can do is get smaller, and as he gets smaller, he gets wings.
Yep.
Yeah,
but like, doesn't get stronger or anything.
No, just smaller.
Yeah, he just smaller.
Just so that he could fly.
Yeah, like Ant-Man at least has the strength thing going on and all that.
Nope, just the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, for all of that just trash, Justice League Europe is super fun. The team dynamics are incredible.
Well, yeah, George Jones was just phenomenal.
So good.
Yeah.
You could pick it up at any point because there's no need for continuity.
I mean, almost any point. Like, there are little storylines and vignettes.
Red Winter is the one that I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I did grab Red Winter 1 of 6. And that is just, I did enjoy that. And they had kooky villains.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's, it knew that there was a hole to fill in the world of weird comic books.
Yeah. And I mean, if this were made now, this would be the team that was taking care of all the problems, so Justice League didn't have to, but that wasn't necessarily the case.
No.
They just didn't have those villains show up at all.
Yeah. They just lucked into the tier C and below villains.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, super great.
Since we're on DC, I want to bring up the most underrated of Batman characters, Tim Drake's Robin.
Super underrated.
Oh my God, this series is so great until like issue 105, or like whenever he changes the entire look. Like he gets like yellow sleeves or something. Like he goes out in the snow.
Wasn't that about the time they where does that fall within the Robin 3?
Oh, so Robin 3 came out right before this.
Okay, great.
So yeah, like Robin 2, Robin 3 with all the little holofoil things. They're kind of terrible comics.
Oh, absolutely.
But from here, you kind of get past all that, which is funny because like those were Chuck Dixon also writing all that. But here, they got past the need to include other Bat villains and do all this stuff. It was more focused on, here's a kid who is filling the shoes of either everyone's best friend, who, like, you know, his older brother, as it were, ran away from home and is friends with everyone except for dad.
Yep.
And then there's your next older brother, so to speak, who's dead. And you're now wearing his clothes.
And was kind of hated prior to his death.
So he's got this really weird world to fill. And he's trying to figure out what to do with everything because, unlike any of the other Robins, he still has his parents. He has a good home life. And he is arguably smarter than Batman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even Batman's like, you got to really watch out for this kid because he's got the drop on me several times. He's absolutely not a better fighter, but he's way smarter.
Way smarter. He's a brilliant character, written very well.
And you get to see him struggle with a lot of life issues, which is kind of fascinating. That like, here's this 16-year-old kid who's trying to maintain perfect grades, do the superhero life, and take care of everyone else. Like, so he's got his girlfriend, and then in his superhero life, there's this other girl that has taken quite a liking to him, but turns out, oh no, she's pregnant, and he needs to help her out. And like, what does he do? Because he's like, God, I want to help you and take care, but like, I don't want to ruin everything else. But if I do, then I'm committed to all that. So, and it's just this fascinating look into the young boy in the 90s who's got everything going for him, but doesn't know what to do with it.
When you first brought that out, I made the comment off camera, clearly, of Tim Drake was the only good character in the Bat family of this era. I'm gonna amend that.
Oh, Nightwing.
Nightwing, and you know what? I do really love the way they did Huntress in those years.
So Huntress, pre-Crisis, was Batman's daughter, and then when they realized that they still liked Huntress, but didn't necessarily know how to use her, that's when she became a crime boss's daughter, and in my opinion, became way more interesting.
A much better character.
Yeah.
Cry of the Huntress was actually a good arc for me of Robin 3.
Yeah.
Everything else notwithstanding.
Yeah, I mean, this era, Nightfall was kind of going on, and Nightfall, though it's a lot of fun, it's so not anyone's character.
Man, Azrael is just two scoops bad.
And Batman keeps making all of the worst decisions.
Yeah.
Just
for no reason.
Like it's like watching a CW show where like, oh, everything's going fine. Wait, nope, I decided that it's not.
Yeah, it's like he got tired of his superpower being forethought and planning.
Yeah. And
just said, forget it, we're doing it live. And reap the rewards of that.
Yeah.
With a nicely broken back.
Oh man. So well, what else you got?
Let's stay kind of in
wait, you only have DC Comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, fine.
I told you, man. Well, you're gonna hit on some stuff that I really love in there.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna try and take that away from you.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? Yeah, we'll throw in. You know what? We're gonna throw in just a really weird run of Catwoman that stood out in my mind and everyone else's mind for literally only one reason. And it's the perfect.
Some might argue too.
Yeah, when Catwoman decides that the best way that she can do what she needs to do is in a uniform so tight that it has a navel. And it's just not great, but it's so of the era.
I was gonna say that this is all you want, man. Like I recommend it to people who want curvy lady comics, but the writing's kind of bad. There's even as a kid, I was like, I mean, the lady's pretty, but this comic is terrible.
Well, that's absolutely. And I definitely remember being very conflicted over, why am I reading this? Oh, wait, I know why I'm reading. And wait, no, why am I reading this? And as an open cheesecake fan, it's not really very forgivable, but it's noteworthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jim Ballant who has kind of become a superstar, unto his own little fan base there. Like it's
very exemplary of his work.
Yeah.
But yeah, the writing is just not there. But you know what? If you want to look at some, I mean, honestly, just great cover art with even if you're taking the pretty lady out of it, in terms of dynamic action and like, there's some great art in there to be had, and there's some great art in there to be had too.
Fair enough. Well, if we're going to go down that road, let me shift things around here. So again, being the young lad that I was, because when you're young, you always look to whatever the slightly older teenagers are doing, thinking whatever they're doing is the coolest. So of course, Gen 13 came out at the exact right time, and it looks like it's a TNA book, and it's just,
and it kind of is.
So it is, but it also is representative of what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's kind of how a lot of kids were dressing. Like it's let's put on, sportswear and leather jackets and go out. Let's put on our swimsuits and put on a little bit of other clothing and go out into the world.
Well, and I think it's a perfect way of looking at like Image in that time when they're not under mom and dad's roof anymore, and they're going to do what they want. And Image was a teenager.
Yeah.
And they put out the book that, Gen 13 kind of, when I think 90s Image, that's actually what I think of.
It feels very much like MTV had the show The Real World.
Yeah.
It was like The Real World,
with
but
powers.
With superpowers. Yeah. Because everything was weirdly high drama. Everything had the highest stakes and the lowest lows, and everyone had this weird love for each other, and it was a really cool book for 25 issues. Like 1 through 25 is the perfect breakup, and if you need to scratch that itch just a little bit more, there's the follow-up arc where they take a trip to New York.
Okay.
And that's kind of the last you should read of Gen 13, but those first issues, for someone who didn't really live that era, it might read a little weird because you don't know what all was going on at the time. Like it references some real world stuff that's going on too, and it's just really good. And it's one of the first mainstream progressive comics that included like a lesbian on the team, and like one of the characters was like, I don't know how to deal with this, and someone's like, well, deal with it like you have been. They're just a person too, and it's like, I don't know about that. So it's really cool to see how all that started.
Yeah,
like in a mainstream title.
And flexing what you could do without having to worry about the comics code.
Right. Yeah, because
without taking it to just gratuity.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, well, we're not Marvel and DC anymore. Here's nudity.
Yeah.
It was a little racy, but it was more taking advantage of it to, hey, let's talk about things that our readers are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and they could just kind of go weirder places than you normally could. Like, these characters had tattoos. These characters made some really bad life choices. And there was, fallout and consequences for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You need to go back and reread that.
Yeah, you do, because, it kind of gets lumped in with, like the whole reason for the podcast of, it got lumped in with all the 90s crap. It's not a blood pool or a death strike or a strike pool or
pouches,
blood.
Pouches.
Yeah.
No, it's, and the people that loved it just unabashedly and forever.
Yeah. Well, because I remember it being the taboo thing to read at the time. If you were a serious comic reader, but no, going back and read it, no, it's incredibly well done.
I love that it holds up.
Yeah. Speaking of things that hold up but don't.
Yeah.
All right, so Wolverine issue 105. Wolverine had just had the adamantium ripped out of his body, and he turned more feral and didn't have a nose all of a sudden.
Adamantium nose, man. What are you gonna do?
Started dating Elektra, which was weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, it was a bad time for Wolverine fans. Just awful. But there's this one issue that feels so incredibly out of place amongst everything else going on at the time, just because it's so good. So Wolverine's freaking out that his healing factor isn't doing as well. He's kind of lost his sense of smell. His keen eyesight's not there. His powers kind of suck right now.
Yeah.
But Wolverine, being the superhero he is, decides that he needs to save people from a burning building because it's burning way too hot for the firefighters. And Wolverine's the only one who can go in there. So he keeps coming down, having them, just hose them down. While he's sopping wet, he goes back in. And he comes down as just this bubbling pile of flesh.
A very Wolverine-y moment.
Yeah, and then, Stick shows up and is like, man, you've really kind of lost your way. He was like, what? Who are you? What? And he was like, yeah, why are you dating Elektra? He's like, I'm trying to save, this family from burning building. He was like, well. Yeah, so then after he leaves, Wolverine finishes saving everyone, and he saves this little kid, and it's this really touching moment. And then the issue right after, they go to the big fight with Onslaught,
that's a fun little.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a whole episode about the Heroes Reborn return, all that stuff, but that's really later down the road because, oh man.
Yeah.
It's one of those where
it's big.
Yeah, and the roots are deeper than you'd expect, but also way more shallow than you'd think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think a good one to jump in with, kind of thematically, is Wonder Woman. Unfortunately, we don't have the exact books for the arc that we recommend.
But we can show them here.
But yes, show them here.
Yeah.
A little bit here.
Much to Drew's chagrin.
But it's Wonder Woman 88 through 91.
Which is funny because you were like, Buck, who had the worst run of comics in the 90s?
It's true.
Wonder Woman. I was like, sir.
And I stand by everything that wasn't that arc.
Man, when Artemis shows up to challenge for
the art is dynamic and unique and interesting.
Mike Deodato Jr. It was him fresh on his game because his Thor stuff was terrible, and then his Wonder Woman stuff was phenomenal.
Yeah, and Artemis shows up and
defeats Wonder Woman for the mantle of Wonder Woman.
There's machinations behind the scenes, and it's just really, it's some of my favorite Wonder Woman ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a quick arc. There isn't much to it. And fortunately, it made me very happy that Artemis became a recurring character over time.
Yeah.
And I loved her in that Red Hood series with
Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Red Hood and the Outlaws. That was fantastic.
I mean, the whole storyline that you're talking about on this was she won the mantle of Wonder Woman and then immediately became so overwhelmed.
Uh-huh.
And then Wonder Woman didn't want to help her, and then did, and oh my god, yeah, high drama, high art, it was just.
But high drama in the, it never felt overly dramatic to me.
No, sorry, high stakes.
Yes,
yeah, high stakes drama, kind of. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, highly, highly, highly recommend. Everything outside of that, buyer beware. There's some really cool art and some fun stuff in that time.
Yeah.
But the 90s was a weird time for that one. But yes, I stood very firmly corrected by Buck about that, and
I'm just saying,
I wholeheartedly agree.
Find a series. I can find you the best that there is. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great comic, but I can find you the best that there is.
Mm-hmm.
I may have read a thing or two.
You may have read a comic or two in your
a time or two. So,
oh yes,
I want to jump into Savage Dragon.
I want you to jump into Savage Dragon.
Oh my god, this whole run has been phenomenal. Outside of the last couple of years, issues where that's a whole nother topic.
He's just,
So Eric Larson is one of the all-time comic greats. He can put out an issue. No time flat. He is consistent.
So consistent.
And he has generally pretty good ideas. So, in Savage Dragon, this alien crash lands onto Earth and has no memory of who or what he is. But he's super strong and can regenerate and, thinks, well, Why don't I become a cop?
Yep.
Because, what else is he going to do? So, as the series progresses, bad things keep happening to him. Like his girlfriends die. His, fellow officers die. Like other characters die. He dies briefly, and then, like, a she-dragon shows up and takes over.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
And then, like, he goes through heaven and hell and meets up with, a whole bunch of different entities, comes back to life, and it's just great. So
we're on issue.
We're nearing issue 300. Like, yeah. And there was one issue that Eric Larson didn't do, but he's gone back and redone entirely because. There's one issue, there was one issue early on in Image where everyone was like, let's trade books.
Right.
Yeah, Jim Lee did issue, I think, 12 or 13, something like that. Then Eric Larson has gone back and redone that issue entirely to fit into his overarching thing. So now he's done close to 300 straight issues.
Which, if you saw the hubbub over Spawn 300, you know what a big deal that is.
So with Savage Dragon, things matter. It's just constantly happening,
Yeah.
It's just kind of this very adult, mature title where immature things happen.
I think it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I like it because it's sneaky.
Yeah.
Because you've got a guy who's, just this side of the Hulk physique-wise.
Yeah.
And equally green, with a giant fin on his head, who's always got some manner of gun that a cop would never have.
Yeah, because he can lift it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an enormous gun. And it has, all of that, like we were talking about with Ghost Rider, the kicking butts, 1990s. But
I mean, it does have some other things. Like there's a time where Hitler's brain is out running around. Yes, literally running around. And he has to go kill Hitler's brain.
Hey, it meant 300 issues.
Yeah.
You're going to have...
Well, this is early on, man. So, currently, this dragon's dead. His son, Malcolm, is currently the Savage Dragon. And it looks like his kids might be taking up the mantle, too. Like I say, things happen in this book, and things change permanently. And it's great.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of any of the Robert Kirkman books, because of I don't know what's going to happen next, the stakes are high, things actually matter, this is the book that it learned from.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that book is one that I scoffed at for too long.
Yeah. Most people do, because they're like, it's Blood Pouch McGee. Yeah. But it's not.
No, not at all.
It had its own Saturday morning cartoon series. For kids, for whatever reason.
Ooh.
It's like it's one of the books that should not have at all.
Not even a little bit.
Not even for kids.
No, less so than the Max.
Yeah, more so now than ever. It's not for kids. It became kind of a dirty book for a little while, and now I think he's like, okay, well, enough fan backlash. Let's stop doing that because it's gross. I mean, like, it's not even just like, oh, it's mature and theme. He does gross things. Yeah.
They don't call him Savage Dragon for nothing.
Google it if you really want to. I recommend against it. Not safe for work. At all. Even my work.
However,
you know what it is? Speaking of police officers, the Flash, even though he wouldn't. Yeah.
He wasn't a cop even a little bit.
Yeah, but Barry was.
But man.
Yeah. So, the Mark Waid Flash is honestly the best Flash you'll come across.
Period.
Yeah. The Jeff Johns Flash is really, really great.
Mark Waid's is beautiful in its simplicity.
Yeah. So, he breaks down some of the best powers of the Flash, like you had mentioned.
My very first encounter with the Flash ever was, I don't know what issue it was. I just know that I cracked it open, and here is this guy in a red and yellow suit who is running to stop a crime, and the bad guys are shooting, and he takes the time to catch a bullet to impress a pretty lady. And he talks about how difficult that is and how easy it is you got to really know what you're doing. It's easy to break a wrist accidentally, but it's all strictly showboating while doing the right thing. And I immediately fell in love with this character.
Yeah.
And so when, after that, I said The Flash, and people went, Barry Allen. I went, no, Wally West.
Yeah, Wally's the best Flash.
He's the best
Sorry,
Flash.
folks. Like, for those who like Barry Allen, you must love White Wonder Bread, which has its place, but he was just so straightforward and, like, matter of fact of, like, pardon me, Wally, but Flash fact, you know what's really great?
Mayonnaise sandwiches on Wonder Bread.
Yeah, it's just...
That is Barry Allen.
Yeah, which, I mean, is fun as a nice foil to Wally. Like, it's... it has its place, but Wally's kind of the better character.
Everything you love about The Flash after the year 2000 is thanks to Wally.
Yeah, because they've kind of morphed Barry into Wally now.
And then just kicked Wally aside,
Yeah.
sadly.
Yeah, like the Flash TV show, a lot of that's Wally.
That's all Wally.
Yeah. Like I
Exception of the Science-y.
Yeah. He was never science-minded individual.
No. He was running and women folk.
Yeah. So it's just kind of sad to see a lot of these characters take the name of a character and just not be that character anymore.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's kind of what we have going on with The Flash. But in this, there was a time where they were leading up to how important Barry Allen was and, how much everyone missed him. And then all of a sudden, this blonde guy that looks just like Barry shows up and seems to have a lot of Barry memories and all this other stuff. And they start to kind of trust him. And lo and behold, it's the Reverse Flash.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's amazing. But this is also the run where they introduce Bart Allen, who's Impulse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Oh, man, yeah.
And my favorite treatment of him as well.
Yes. And if you all get a chance, anything 90s with Mark Waid's name on it is great.
That is a truth fact.
What else you got?
In my... much in the way that the 90s taught me with Steel to that love is fleeting, I started reading comics right when the Ray came out, and this was, of course, the Ray had predated this.
So there was the Golden Age, the Ray.
There was the Golden Age of the Ray.
But that's like his kid, so...
Exactly. And Priest writing it, which really early on.
Yeah, it's early Chris Priest, but right after he was done being James Owsley.
Yep.
Yep.
And the backstory is just the right kind of preposterous, where he was raised by nuns in the dark, and then when he gets exposed to the sunlight, it activates his powers, and he's the right kind of 90s teenager, kind of gritty, a little out of control, but he's just a good person. I loved everything about the Ray. I loved the way he interacted. He had a feel that was... You could liken him to many other characters, but to me, he had a feel on all his own. And, unfortunately, he just kind of burned him out.
Well, yeah. Pun not intended. I did like when they threw him into Young Justice, which, speaking of Young Justice, Peter David, just top of his game.
Yeah.
Taking all the side, Teen Titans had been kind of done to death. Titans wasn't quite working. So they were like, well, how about a new team? And he was like, well, how about I call it Young Justice? We can make it this whole play on words. It's young, but just us. Right. So it's Sidekick Central, and then after a while they start recruiting other people. Mm-hmm. Red Tornado decides that he wants to be part of the team because he wants to see how young people interact and learn some more humanity. He's got his adopted daughter that needs looking after.
In no way, shape, or form mirroring Data of the Next Generation at the time.
So Peter David is a big Star Trek fan and did write a whole bunch of stuff. I haven't read it or watched any Star Trek like that, so sure. How's this? To me, it's all brand new, so
Perfect.
So it works.
Fresh eyes.
Yeah, I don't care what kind of data, or whatever you have. It's all new to me.
It's all Young Justice.
It's real to me. Sacrificing your bodies. Anyway, so yeah, the Ray ends up joining Young Justice towards the end of the run, but he's this kind of weird fit on the team because he's older than all the other characters, but too young to really fit in with the Justice League or anyone. So it's kind of neat to see where he sits in that.
And wholly inexperienced, even though he's older.
Right. Although my favorite Ray moment was when Superman got stupid electrical powers.
Oh, God.
And the Ray shows up and tries to teach him how to use them. And it was like, anytime you need me, I'm here. And Superman's like, oh, that's weird. All right, cool, thanks. And then never really used his electrical powers well because
Nope.
they didn't think him through. And then in Justice League, they finally use his powers for good reason and then get rid of them immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Womp womp.
Yeah. Let me talk about Batman Cataclysm. Because this is kind of later 90s business, but it kind of ushered in the new Batman. It's the perfect bridge between post Nightfall Batman and, the modern era, 2000s on Batman.
Yeah.
Just because this is where all of Gotham went to hell. You got to redefine characters and how they worked in Gotham. Because a lot of them were just kind of like hand-writhing villains doing villainy for villain's sake. And here you have Penguin deciding that he wants to, be in charge. You have Two-Face, becoming a much better hero trying to impress Renee Montoya.
Right.
And because he fell for her and, she didn't want to lead him on because of, things that they couldn't talk about back then.
Uh-huh.
And you get Poison Ivy growing food for all of Gotham out of their park and, like, Batman keeping it all together. The Loner having to, like, put everyone in charge in very strategic places. It's all right, certain bad guys are getting parts of the city to protect, and if you don't protect it, I'll take you down.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it's an arc that doesn't get talked about enough.
Right. Well, and it all happens because there's the classic Batman villain, Quake Master.
The classic, well-known Batman villain, Quake Master.
Yeah, who was like, let's do earthquakes.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, well, you find out early on that it's him. But bad writing aside on that part, you get to see Batman deal with actual tragedy. And it's not a thing that you see Batman have to deal with his city being torn asunder and him having to keep everything together after seeing how Hal Jordan dealt with it. You know? So it's Cataclysm is definitely one that you'll need to pick up on.
Speaking of tragedy, actually, I think that dovetails nicely there.
Yes.
This.
I was going to say
with that. Well, but if you want to go here,
I was going Hal Jordan.
We can go here
because that dovetails nicely.
It does,
and then we'll go into this.
That's fine. So this is Green Lantern Emerald Twilight. My absolute, I'm going to call it my absolute favorite story arc of all time. It is the book that caused me to fall truly in love with comics. I still have the original trade that I bought when it first came out, back when bookstores were a thing. And
trade paperbacks were rare.
Yes.
Yeah. So seldom did things get collected.
True. And it is just, it's one of those where I've taken it around to my friends that have read it, and it's, hey, I bet this is better than you remember. And invariably, absolutely. The writing is spectacular. The art, in spite of the fact that it's 3 artists across 3 issues, is all great, especially for its time.
Well, and the whole story that I just found out about this, Ron Mars got approached to take over the book And they're like, I don't know about this. They're like, we need you to take over the book, and we want you to do all this stuff with it. We've changed our plans entirely. Here's a whole bunch of money. You have 3 weeks to come up with 3 issues.
Yeah, they completely changed the arc.
Yeah, so like he knocked out 3 scripts, gave it to 3 different artists who got it all done in the same time, and they hit the ground running. And it's for something that's written so quickly, it feels like something that had been long planned.
Oh, the writing is superb. See, I've always had a problem. I understand if you read a lot of Green Lantern, I've always understood the criticism of Hal Jordan is a vanilla character that has no defining characteristics.
I mean, the problem there is that's most of the Silver Age characters that didn't quite get
It's true.
re-upped.
They're heroic.
Yeah.
But here, he's a human.
Yeah.
And you understand his motivations completely. And it's, I mean, arguably his best moment comes in what was intended to be shuffling him off the board.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you haven't read it, that is my pick for read it immediately.
And the follow-up to it was the introduction of Kyle Rayner.
Exactly.
Which, in my opinion, is the Earth's Green Lantern. Like, he came into his own. He saved the Corps from complete extinction. He reignited everything. Like, he got Oa back on track. Brought Kilowog back from the dead. Like, he is the reason that any Green Lantern anything is around, continuity wise.
And did it all with,
like, Alan Scott would show up from time to time and be like, well, kid, back in my day we didn't do that kind of thing. It was like, oh, okay, sorry.
yeah. Also, stop looking at my daughter like that.
Well, yeah.
He did it all without really any training or education, and it really,
because Ganthet showed up and was like, hey, good luck.
hey, here's a ring, adios.
Yeah.
And you feel it the whole time.
Yeah.
It's so good and so fun. He's a fun character. What he can do as an artist and a graphic designer with a ring is super fun.
Because he's got so much more imagination than Hal Jordan ever thought of having.
Or anybody.
And that's where they really defined the differences between having a Green Lantern amongst different people, of why it wasn't just like, oh, well, he has a ray gun and I have a ray gun and you have a ray gun. It's they work differently with each person because, like, John Stewart made the most solid constructs. Hal Jordan, had like the most long lasting force bubbles, whatever. Whereas Kyle had the most intricate and best moving.
Yeah, I mean, Hal was likely to hit you with a giant boxing glove. Kyle would make a Gundam suit and still hit you with a fist, but there was a whole suit behind it.
Yeah.
Yes, just super cool. And unfortunately, in the early issues, we end up creating the women in refrigerators thing.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a little unfair because his girlfriend had some. She wasn't just cannon fodder. There was enough to her.
Yeah, and the whole idea was that they wanted to do something drastic.
Yeah,
but it's
if you pick up, I'd say Green Lantern 48 through 55.
Yep.
And you get least a really good. Yeah, I mean you could stop because Kyle Rayner starts at 51.
Yeah, and then honestly, keep going with it because like when he meets up with old Hal Jordan and it was like, whoa, dude, you go crazy. He was like, I'd never do that. But anyway, here's a copy of my ring. It can make copies of itself. Start the Corps. Sounds like the Corps not doing well. It was like, no, you killed the Corps. It's like, whatever, kid. Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And unfortunately, he's one of those characters. I feel he is super underutilized for everything after this run.
Right.
DC keeps putting him in weird stuff that he's better than. He becomes Ion, and he's the most powerful green. Not really.
But no, he's a White Lantern now.
But now he's a White Lantern, and that is the great. Yeah.
They keep trying to put him on the top shelf, and he keeps falling off.
Yeah, well, they stop building supports for the shelves.
Right.
He's a great character, and if you're not very familiar with Kyle Rayner, man, is he perfectly 90s. When he designs his new suit, it's just great. It's so great.
All right, so I want to get into kind of a three-parter recommendation here. I want to hear about yours, and then I'm finishing on that.
Alrighty.
All right. We got a plan. So Uncanny X-Men 303, for those that have listened to this podcast, you've heard me talk about it before. This is one of the best issues of the Uncanny X-Men of all time, just from the character standpoint. So Jubilee is hanging out with a very sick and dying Illyana, Colossus's sister, and has kind of started to take a liking to her, and all of a sudden Illyana takes a turn for the worst. And Kitty Pryde is trying to coach, help Jubilee cope with mortality. And Jubilee's starting to realize that, this is not the superhero happy life that we're always going to have. I could die during this. I could die doing this, and I'm a young teenager who...
with terrible powers.
Yeah, well... and she's talking with Kitty Pryde, who she realizes she's the new Kitty Pryde, and things don't always work out. And then Illyana dies, and she loses it. She just has such a hard time with everything. And then Colossus comes and finds out about, Illyana dying, and he leaves the team, and she feels like it's all her fault, and she just has such a rough go of things. And it's just one of the most moving X-Men comics that has been printed in the entire run. I can't recommend it enough. But that does lead us to the Phalanx Saga, or the Phalanx Covenant. So X-Men 36-37, Uncanny X-Men 316, 317, you get introduced to Skin, Sync, and M, who formed Generation X. But the Phalanx show up, and they start kind of infiltrating the X-Men, and you don't know who's who, and Banshee shows up, who hadn't been around for a real long time, and Emma Frost is coming back down from being in Iceman's body for a while, and Sabretooth is kind of getting his mind right from Wolverine popping a claw through it. So it's these teenagers, Banshee, who hadn't been an X-Men in forever, and two of the worst villains of the X-Men going up against essentially the Body Snatchers, who are constantly trying to assimilate everything. Oh, and you get introduced to Blink for the first time.
Ooh.
Who, got famous in Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, she may or may not make it out of this. That's why she wasn't on Generation X. But this is the beginning of all Generation X stuff, and it is great. I highly recommend that, and the first 25 issues of Generation X.
With a foil cover and everything.
The big foily cover. Chris Bacalo, however you want to say it. I should do my research before these things. But it is great. Tony the Tiger approved.
He's got a really unique style.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of neat seeing Jubilee upset that she's not on the X-Men anymore, but still kind of has to reconcile with the fact of, not too long ago I was freaking out about this. I think I'm where I need to be. And then she has she wants to be co-leader of the team, but Emma Frost and Banshee don't want that. And the interaction with Cannonball's sister and who goes by Husk, because of course she does.
Husk.
Yeah, and Chamber, is just great. Chamber's the super tragic character of the team.
Oh, yeah.
His lower half of his face blew off when his powers activated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah. It's it's the exact opposite of Gen 13, but also kind of the same too.
Same audience.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the same readership, but it was the same audience.
Yeah. It's like I don't know, Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Archie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's the closest I could.
That's good.
Yeah. They're very similar in tone, but one's way crazier than the other. Not to say that the other one isn't crazy. All right, hit us with one of my all-time favorite characters.
I had to pick it because A, this is one of Buck's favorites of all time.
Oh my god.
And B, to me, no matter what era he's in, he will always be a 90s character to me because that was my
so weird.
Right? I know. Yeah. I know. But the 90s were when they were putting him in everything. And as we previously mentioned him, that's our the Element Man Metamorpho. I first learned about him in Justice League Europe, and if you describe him, he's a weird, clearly an amalgamation of like three things. Like he's partially Reed Richards, but he kind of talks like Ben Grimm.
Yeah.
But he's got his own thing. And he's just so unique that I immediately just, boom. Him and Crimson Fox. It's like, I get you. Because they're just so out there. And Metamorpho, that, to me, it's limitless power in a character, which is super 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But always trying to find the right application and seeing it go, hither and thither and yon. And he's just, yeah. I knew Buck and I were going to get along when he mentioned that Metamorpho was one of his favorite characters of all time.
Yeah, when we had Art Baltazar here signing,
oh man,
he said, "All right, Buck, I'd love to draw something for you. Who are your favorite characters?" I said, "Well, Metamorpho and Zatanna." He said, "Well, why do you like those characters?"
Well, you're a weird kid. Well,
yeah. He said, "Why do you like those characters, Buck?" I said, "Well, if you look at Metamorpho, like he's." Obviously one of the most interesting looking comic characters of all time. He's this, super tragic guy, but he's, pretty happy until he's not. And then it's just.
He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
And he's earnest. He's a horrible backstory, but he's trying to do good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned all that to him. And then I was like, and then there's Zatanna, who's, the perfect comic character because, she's attractive to look at, but she's not, overdone. You look at her costume, she's obviously a magician, and her comics are her powers are perfect for comics because, she talks backwards and then you see what it is, but you can stop, just look at the page and read it backwards, and there you go. There's powers. He says, "Buck, I like why you like characters."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he said, "Who else do you like?" I was like, "Well, I love Mr. Miracle. He's this escape artist that's named Scott Free." So then he drew a Scott Free real quick.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, that's super fun. And I like why you like characters as well.
Yep.
For me, it's Metamorpho's always been he's the working man superhero to me.
Yes.
Like if anybody's wearing a blue collar, it's Metamorpho.
Yes.
And he works harder than everybody else, and dang it, he probably sleeps pretty well at night.
He saved the Justice League once and died, sort of, and then no one showed up to his funeral-ish.
Oh, poor Metamorpho.
Oh, he got better. But yeah, Justice League or JLA like number 5. When Tomorrow Woman shows up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Oh, it gets rough. So I wanted to end this thing on...
Yeah, man.
I tried to keep all of this in kind of the mid to low 90s. Like 96 was kind of the latest I wanted to pull any of these things.
That's really...
Yeah, except I wanted to... I was going to talk about Thunderbolts ad nauseum.
I wanted to as well.
I love Thunderbolts so much, but we'll save that for another one of these. Earth X came out in 1999. And what a way to close out the decade.
Really and truly.
By... encompassing everything Marvel had done to that point. When you sit down and read all of it, and you have to read all the text that's there because that gives you part of the story. It looks like you're just looking at character design pages, but you're looking at spotlights on characters. You're sometimes reading text that's between Machine Man and the Watcher, discussing what's going on because Machine Man's just asking questions. You find the backstory of why everything exists, and it looks like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby sat down and plotted out this entire Marvel universe to a T. It looks like everything was so carefully planned to come to this point.
It's brilliant.
You find out that Galactus is here, and his sole purpose is to extinguish celestial eggs, and celestials are the ultimate problem causers of the universe. They're trying to rule this thing. But they'll go to a world and plant an egg inside of that world, and then the inhabitants of that world get superpowers, like Skrulls, the Kree, like all these different, alien races that you hear of. All of them have celestial eggs inside their planets, and Galactus goes to eat them. He's the kind of, he's keeping them from...
Galactus, the ultimate good guy.
Yeah, it turns out. And then, you find out that the Asgardians were an ancient race of aliens that crash-landed on Earth, and their abilities are tied to how much people believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that they're believed in, the stronger, more powerful they get. You find out that it's because of the whole Celestials thing, that's why Hulk didn't die when he got exposed to the gamma bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man didn't die from that radiation thing. All these things because of the Celestials.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's just where it begins.
Yeah.
And where it goes, oh my God. Black Bolt is absolutely the most perfect hero in the Marvel Universe because of this book.
Which is not something you'll hear elsewhere.
No. Oh my God, the thing that there's one scene. Oh.
It's beautiful to behold. The art is fantastic in it.
Yeah.
The storytelling is great. Everything Earth X.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we were talking about like Thunderbolts came out like 96, 97.
Right.
But it feels like an early thousands book.
Yeah.
Transmetropolitan, 97, 98 feels like an early thousands book.
Authority, Planetary, they're 98, 99.
Clearly thousands books.
Yeah.
Earth X came out in 99, feels like a 90s book.
Yeah, well, it feels like an all-era book.
Yeah, because there's a lot of golden age in there.
Yeah, because it takes everything.
Yeah.
And it makes it perfect. So, with that is this week's back issue deep dive, 90s edition. I don't know, Dutch angles now. I don't know. How do you solve end a series like this? I don't know. So I think just like
that's all, folks.
Yep. We'll see y'all next week.